to yourself. We can make it available to yourselves so that you don't have to be writing notes down frantically, but then it will also be available to the wider guidance counsellor community who may not have been able to join today. So because we have this function of being able to record, I invite you to really just to sit back and listen, and to see if anything that you hear from this session kind of resonates with you. I have Siobhan can share a list of further resources that is available at the end of the session as well. So you can do some further reading, and there's links to some of the websites that I have taken some of the resources from. So just to signpost you to where this part of the Nurturing Bright Futures content is. So it's here in module number 1. And number 1.2 is growth mindset and multiple intelligences. So today I'll be looking at learning mindsets, which include growth mindset. So all my work now within the university is on supporting students in their transitions into the university and through the university, both in my kind of mainstream academic role within the university, with graduate attributes in terms of contributing to the wider picture, but also in different research programs that I'm involved in. And increasingly, I'm aware of and being able to distill down some of these, I suppose, observations that we're all really increasingly aware of, one of which is captured in this statement from the United Nations last year, that a job for life is no longer a thing. And that really the young people that we are supporting are growing up increasingly in times of uncertainty. Now, you all on the call are obviously at the coalface, and particularly with a guidance role, know this only too well. But I think for all of us, it requires us then to consider how we need to support young people, whether we're a parent, an educator within the university sector, to deal with that uncertainty. This statement is taken from a podcast that I listened to back in 2019, and it has really stood out as one of the most thought-provoking podcasts that I've listened to. Abraham Verghese and Denise Pope are Stanford educators. Abraham Verghese is a doctor and he's an author, and Denise Pope leads a not-for-profit called Challenge Success. And they really, in that podcast and through their work, which they spoke about in that podcast, which was on the On Being podcast series, said that this idea of a straight and narrow path is really outdated. And they think that we should, instead of asking young people, as we tend to do when we're meeting a child who's 5 or 10 or 12 or 15, is like, what do you want to do when you grow up, or what do you want to do maybe when you leave school? And they feel that that's, we need to think more about how we can support people to be like who they want to be in the world. So a lot of my work now is looking at the bigger picture effects that influence how young people's lives are lived. And if we think about generational effects, then we have Gen Z, and it's helpful to think about what's different about the life and times that they are operating within compared to previous generations. And I was thinking about this yesterday as I was preparing these slides and thinking, the Leaving Cert system is really, it predates all of the life and times, obviously, of these young people, but calls to mind then how fit for purpose it is for them. Nevertheless, it is the system that we all have to operate within currently. And so it's important that we work within that system to the best extent possible. So we definitely look at kind of more macro level influences on young people, but also I'm increasingly interested in much finer grained details and actually looking at understanding and supporting young people through the lens of developmental neuroscience. So Adolescence now is considered to be from the age range of 10 to 24 years. That the extension to the lower age range is because we know that puberty is happening earlier and earlier across the world, but also because mainly through the use of functional MRI technology, the neuroscience research now shows and has clearly demonstrated that all of this restructuring and shaping and specializing continues to happen throughout our lifespan, to be honest, but there's this intense burst of restructuring, shaping, and specializing through the adolescent years right through to the mid-20s. And this is really important for us in terms of how we understand and can support young people. So, and this neuroscience perspective is the whole underpinning of growth mindset or learning mindset theory. But we can think about how the neuroscience summarizes things like experience, thoughts, skills, emotions, and habits determine which neurons will develop new connections and are strengthened and which are pruned away. So you may have heard this phrase that often comes up when we think about brain plasticity, the sense that the brain is malleable or that we can mold it. But this idea that neurons that fire together wire together, or in another way, use it or lose it. So essentially, there is clear evidence from a neuroscientific point of view that the habits and the behaviors and the thought processes that we engage in and put our effort in, they are the ones that are strengthened, and those which we do not use regularly are pruned away in this really super efficient mechanism within the brain. So increasingly, so just one final thing that's really important, I think, for us as educators, either in a second level or in a tertiary level setting, is this developmental mismatch that occurs. The emotional, the central, see the turquoise, the central part of the brain, the limbic system, that develops earlier and faster. So that's kind of really activated there. You can see in the bottom left or by around 15. But the prefrontal cortex, where all of the future decision-making, planning, reasoning, skills that are really needed actually when you think about it for career planning purposes, they don't develop until really the mid-20s. So there's this period where young people are, and those of us who are involved in supporting young people can often see that, where it feels like there is an immaturity. But it's not the brain is immature, there's nothing wrong with it, it's that there's this mismatch of capacities. But again, how can we harness that information to support young people? And some of my favorite papers really ask that question. So how can we apply this developmental science perspective to understanding the lives of young people? This is one table, don't even bother looking at it all, but just see where the yellow arrow is there. And they talk about how we need to really try and activate and acknowledge and pull in all of the emotional processing to encourage young people to develop their identities, but their heartfelt goals, which I think is a beautiful phrase. And it really builds on what Mary McCarthy was talking about on Wednesday. We're really encouraging students and young people to be less influenced perhaps by trends and job prospects, but really try and think what really speaks to them as a person. So their heartfelt goals, and creating mastery curve learning opportunities that gradually become more challenging. So David Yeager on this, the first author in this paper, and Carol Dweck, these are the people who are leading the learning mindset science that we'll go on to speak about now. But in this paper, they talk about how important it is that we engage with young people and really try and help them to feel that they are autonomous in making their decisions, that they feel respected in making their decisions, and that a really powerful motivator for young people is a sense of peer esteem. So again, Mary spoke the other day about trying to maybe build in some group activities whereby young people can really explore some of this together. So that's kind of some of the underpinning science for what we're talking about today. But this slide is taken from another program that I'm involved in, and I'll talk more about later on. But for me, it represents what we're here today to talk about most powerfully. So we've referred to growth mindset in the Nurturing Bright Futures program, but learning mindsets is actually emerging as a more umbrella term for the different approaches to mindsets. And I think if we look at this, I suppose, a corollary of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But if we look at the bottom, we all have physiological needs for food, safety, and love. And these underpin our capacity to engage in learning tasks. But if you look at the learning mindset statements on the right, and these are what really summarize now this kind of more contemporary perspective and approach on learning mindsets. So not just I can succeed, which, I suppose relates to the most traditional view of growth mindset, or I can change my abilities through effort, but value and purpose and belonging are also really identified now as core learning mindsets. So this work has value and purpose for me. So again, I suppose really relating to the heartfelt goals and that people can really connect with these things on an emotional level, but also I belong in this community, and how important a sense of belonging is for young people. And really that again speaks to the neurophysiological development, where they're, the influence of the peer group is so important at that age and stage for their very survival. And the brain, the function of a species evolutionarily is to move away from its family unit of origin, and so needs to navigate the peer group. So this is another framework that I draw on more in my work, and I just wanted to put it up here to see how mindsets sit within this framework alongside knowledge and skills, self-regulation, self-regulation I can't see because my screen, mindset, self-regulation, I can't see what the other thing is in the green, but really that mindsets increasingly are seen as one core element of a whole developmental process that is going on, and self-regulation also being really, really important. And that's speaking to the need and the capacity to apply the capacities from the prefrontal cortex to regulate our emotions. So again, going back to the hierarchy slide, we can see that learning mindsets now include growth mindset, belonging mindset, and purpose and relevance. So growth mindset, then, students are more likely to persist through challenges when they understand that intelligence is malleable rather than a fixed trait. We'll come back to that. Belonging mindset, students who have a strong sense of belonging in their environment are more likely to succeed and persist through challenges. And then purpose and relevance. So when students believe that their schoolwork has a purpose and relates to their life outside school or college, they are more eager to learn. So again, really connecting emotionally with what is of value to them and their emerging identity. So if we just narrow the lens in a little bit on growth mindset. So I had the good fortune to attend this one-day symposium with Carol Dweck back in September 2019, which now feels like a different lifetime ago, obviously pre-COVID, but the day of hopping on a plane for a one-day trip to London feels like a very long time ago. But the promoters were saying, hopefully truthfully, that well, not trying to get bums on seats, but anyway, they were saying that she's Carol Dweck is coming towards the end of her public speaking career. So it was a nice opportunity. And the whole day was about developing a growth mindset for learning. But what really struck me from the day was it helped me to develop my thinking and move on my thinking and understanding of how to apply growth mindset theory. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. So essentially, the whole scholarship of growth mindset based on Professor Carol Dweck's work. She really wanted to understand why certain young people in certain learning activities would persist with the task and why others would give up. And her scholarship and the whole theory of growth mindset that she articulated in her book, Mindset, proposed that there were different learning mindsets. So on the one hand, a fixed mindset, and on the other hand, a growth mindset. So growth mindset represented by I can learn anything I want to. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. I want to challenge myself. When I fail, or fall indeed, I learn. Tell me I try hard. If you succeed, I'm inspired, and my effort and attitude determine everything. Whereas on the other end of the continuum, I'm either good at it or I'm not. When I'm frustrated, I give up. I don't like to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. Tell me I'm smart. If you succeed, I feel threatened. My abilities determine everything. So you can read about the kind of classic experiments that they engaged young people in to try and tease this out. But essentially, the whole idea underpinning the theory is that moving away from an idea that intelligence is fixed, that, and I know I think about it myself. I'm not good at maths, or God, I couldn't wire a plug. I'm not, I'm not that way wired. Whereas my husband might say, God, I'm useless at baking, but I'm not even sure if he's ever really tested that theory. And I see it in college myself with my own students. One of the occupational therapy modules is the creativity module, and every year students are so threatened because they're, for the majority, apart from a small few who might feel naturally talented at art, most of them feel I'm no good at art, I can't do this, and they're really challenged to work around that idea. But essentially, growth mindset is to challenge all of that and to say, you know what, with effort, and the traditional model used to be, it was about effort. When you work hard, you get the results. But two things really were highlighted to me at the day with Carol Dweck. One was that this idea that we're either one or the other is completely wrong. We all have a fixed mindset persona, is what she says, which can be stronger in certain situations than other. So it's about identifying what are the situations that we find ourselves in where this fixed mindset persona is really strong and really dictating our thinking patterns. But also this idea of it's more than effort. And really what she highlighted to me, we need to celebrate mistakes. And also we need to ensure that young people understand that asking for help is not a sign of weakness or failure. In fact, it is a key growth mindset behavior. So if we just look quickly through this worked example, so if we take the example of in school or in college, a student getting a poor grade on an assignment or an exam. So if they feel that their intelligence is fixed, the messages that they might be saying then are, I'm stupid, I shouldn't even bother trying. This feeds into a reduced effort, feeds into more likely to have diminished academic engagement and performance, which goes on to having this negative loop. Whereas if a young person can say, yeah, I'm disappointed with that result, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, I'm going to get feedback about where I went wrong. I'm going to see, I'm going to try different strategies. Maybe I do need to work a bit harder and put in a bit more persistence and effort. Who can I ask for help? And this supports a more positive loop. So for young people, Carol Dweck and the growth mindset world encourage this adding in the word yet. And honestly, it's such a powerful, tiny micro practice with a big impact. So when we hear ourselves saying, as we all do, I can't do this yet, this doesn't work yet. And so when I'm supporting first year students going around college at the moment and they literally do not know where they're going, they don't know where they're going yet. Like in a few weeks, they're going to know where they're going. But referencing is still going to be hard in a few weeks. Maybe it'll take them a while to get to feel that they've, clicked with a group of friends. But it's not that it will never happen. It just hasn't happened yet. So if you want one quick takeaway from this to get very quick results with young people, it's this. And then the other ways that we can really support young people, and all of us do goal setting with young people a lot, but what I like about this particular goal setting worksheet, and the link is in the resources sheet that Siobhan will share, it's from Mindset Works and that website, but it really looks at who is my support system. And I think for the Nurturing Bright Futures program, obviously that's really important, because maybe it's parents who are tapping into it, maybe it's young people themselves, but really to know that we all need a support system. But I also really like about identifying obstacles. And one of the big things around behavior change or habit formation is anticipating what is likely to be difficult and working out a plan for how you will deal with that. This is another nice worksheet or printout, and it's, again, the link is in the resources at the end. We don't have time to go through it all, but there is a lot of work on how to praise young people. And again, earlier iterations of growth mindset were about, good job, you worked hard. And that kind of was a bit of a panacea for everything. But as the literature says, young people aren't stupid. They know when they're kind of just being given a bit of a glib response. But the idea, it's not just to praise effort, it's to praise the process, not the outcome. So growth mindset, praise and feedback. So instead of saying you are so smart, you can say, I can see that you worked hard on this. Instead of saying, God, you're a natural at that, you might say, well, I really like watching you do that. So instead of saying, that was really hard, I'm so glad it's over and you don't have to do that again. Instead, maybe say, that was really hard, your effort paid off. Next time you'll be ready for this kind of challenge. I'm living this at home in my house at the moment. My son, I think all the COVID school closures have really impacted on his Irish language. He's in 6th class. And we've been saying to him, you know what, you read all of the time, you mad into soccer, so you're doing maths all the time. You're not doing Irish all the time. And we didn't really kind of give that much attention during lockdown. So it's going to take a while for your brain to get going on this again. So speaking in it, rather than saying, because we really don't want him to have this idea that he's no good at languages. So some of the loveliest papers I've read, again, from these authors, David Yeager, who is a student of Carol Dweck's and is really one of the leaders in the field now, but looking at growth mindset and resilience. There's a link to this paper at the end. We have found that what students need the most is mindsets that represent challenges as things that they can take on and overcome with time, overcome over time, with effort, new strategies, learning, help from others, and patience. And they say, when we emphasize people's potential to change, we prepare our students to face life's challenges resiliently. So, obviously, Nurturing Bright Futures is about supporting young people to transition from school to further higher education. But equipping young people with a growth mindset will stand to them throughout their lifetime, which is obviously, we want young people to be happy and well and succeed in whatever way they want to live their lives. So I'm not going to talk about this actually, but the science around growth mindset is very compelling. This was taken from Nature, a paper in September 2019. Nature, if you're not in the academic world, is the absolute gold standard journal. So really robust science underpinning growth mindset. And then just to quickly draw to your attention some of the earlier slides about the brain and the generational kind of cohort effects are taken from a program that I've been involved in developing called Brain Power, Harnessing the Power and Potential of Adolescent Brain and Behavior for Enhanced Learning, Wellbeing and Student Success. It will be launching in November, and it will be available outside of UCC as well. So if you're interested in this whole area, these are the modules. So it's 6 modules: understanding adolescence, the adolescent brain, learning brain, the social brain, the stressed brain, and the organized brain. So just to conclude, obviously all of the materials are on the website, you know, really to encourage you to engage with those. And here are our contact details if you don't have them already, or if you wish to make contact. And my own email address is here, e.hunt@ucc.ie, if you wish to connect with me after the session today. So really just to say thank you for joining us, for giving over your lunch break on a nice sunny day, a little bit cloudier here now in Cork. And it's 3 minutes to 1. I don't know, do we open the floor to any comments or questions, or has anything come in the chat that I haven't been keeping an eye on?
There is a question in the chat, Eithne, in relation to whether the slides can be shared afterwards.
So the slides won't be shared, but the recording is shared.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And the list of handouts. Siobhan, do you want to pop that into the chat there if you haven't done that already?
Maggie actually put them up.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. Great. So yeah, if anyone does have a question, I don't know, is that my last slide? Yeah, if anyone, shout away if anyone has a question. I can't even see hands up on Zoom. I'm not that familiar with Zoom. I'm much more proficient with Teams, but somebody will see a hand, or just unmute yourself and go for it if you want to.
And just to say that Mary is with us as well, who gave the talk on Wednesday and last Friday. If anyone has a question for Mary and for Eithne, feel free to ask.
I think I'm so delighted, and apologies, I was a few minutes late. I was at a meeting, but it's just so important, this stuff, you know, you know, I've been at some of your other talks as well, and it's just so valuable. Yeah. It's so important when they're looking at and thinking about their future and setting limits for themselves already, you know.
Okay.
Better points and all that, but just setting limits.
Yeah.
What we think about and explore, because it's.
I don't know if you were here, Mary, at the opening the slides there, but I said that
the first 7 or 8 minutes, I think.
Oh yeah, well, I spoke about heartfelt goals, which in the literature, which just resonates so much with what you were speaking about on Wednesday about trying to. I just think it's such a beautiful phrase, you know. If we could all listen to our heartfelt goals in life, we'd go far, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm conscious of time. It's just coming up to 1 o'clock. I don't see anything else in the chat other than a Muila Breakus. So Gurv Milamoth Agwiv. And just to say, if anyone would like to ask anything, feel free to chime in now. Otherwise, we might leave it there and say a massive thank you to Eithne for her wonderful slides from today, and to Mary for her 2 sessions from earlier this week and last week, and to Lenka who started the whole autumn CPD series off for us. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to be with us. The recordings will be available, and I know Lenka is going to collate them into one recording. They'll be available to watch separately as well. And if you have any questions around any of the content that you'd like to follow up with Eithne or Mary or Lenka or ourselves here in Graduate Attributes, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be delighted, only too delighted to hear from you. Can I also take the opportunity to say that the Nurturing Bright Futures is, I suppose, not that it's a work in progress, but it is absolutely an entity that we want to grow, develop, evolve. So your feedback and your comments and your observations and your suggestions for future content are absolutely critical to its development. So please do let us know if you feel, you know, we can consolidate areas, or if there's a gap. We'd be only too delighted to hear from you. And just to say thank you very much. Hopefully you've received the packs in the post. If you haven't, please reach out and let us know, and we can get them sent to you again. And thank you very much. It's been wonderful to have you here with us, and we hope to see you back in the spring when we'll have the spring series. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a million. Bye now.